Imagine a force, like an entity so unimaginably massive that it created the entire universe out of literal nothing.
Right. Just the scale of that is...
It's completely mind-bending. A force that set the galaxy spinning and, engineered all the laws of physics.
Oh, yeah.
But now imagine that exact same boundless, terrifying force is currently, at this very second, sitting quietly inside your chest. And it's actively beating your heart for you.
That is just a staggering contradiction.
It really is. It's this ultimate beautiful paradox, right? An
Wow.
entity that is both infinitely massive and then somehow profoundly intimate. And that exact paradox is what we are jumping into for today's deep dive. Welcome, everyone.
Glad to be here. It really is the kind of paradox that it completely breaks the boundaries of our everyday vocabulary.
Yes, sir.
Because you just can't, put a tape measure around infinity. Yet here we are trying to grasp it.
Which is exactly why we need a guide for this. And for this deep dive, our source material provides just an incredible one. We're looking at a beautifully profound text.
It really is.
It's a Shabad written by Guru Arjan Dev Ji. You'll find on pages 639 and 640 of the text you shared with us. And it's written in Rag Sorath, which actually I want to pause on that for a second.
Oh, sure. Good idea.
Because whenever we look at these texts, there are these technical terms that can feel, I don't know, like a barrier to entry for you listening. So what does it actually mean that this is in Rag Sorath?
Well, that is a crucial detail to start with. It really frames everything we're about to discuss. A rag in the Indian classical and Sikh musical tradition, it isn't just a melody.
Okay, so it's not just a tune you hum.
No, not at all. It is a specific musical framework that is designed to evoke a very particular emotional state in the listener.
Oh, whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Rag Sorath specifically is known for creating this atmosphere of gentle, seeking devotion.
Gentle devotion. I like that.
Right. It carries a mood of longing, but also a deep sense of soothing reassurance at the same time.
That's a powerful combination.
Exactly. So Guru Arjan Dev Ji wasn't just writing an academic essay here. He was composing a piece of spiritual art meant to be sung, felt, and experienced.
Experienced in a way that, bypasses the logical brain.
Yes. It goes straight to the emotional core.
That makes perfect sense because the text immediately targets that emotional core by setting up this massive, almost intimidating scale.
Oh, completely.
It describes the creator as the cause of causes. It says this almighty Lord fashioned the soul and the body by his own power.
Right.
But then it immediately asks these completely humbling questions. It says, how can he be described? How can he be seen?
Because he can't be.
Right. The text explicitly states that this creator is lofty, inaccessible, and infinite, and that his worth simply cannot be estimated.
It forces you to, stand at the edge of the Pacific Ocean and realize you are holding a very small glass of water.
That is a great analogy.
The text is highly intentional about establishing that vast distance first.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I have to ask, if the text is telling me this creator is truly inaccessible and totally beyond description, why should you or I even try to connect?
That's the big question, right?
Yeah. I mean, if I am a regular person just trying to pay my bills, navigate my daily life, striving to reach something that is by definition unreachable, that just sounds like a recipe for constant frustration.
It does.
If I can never estimate its worth, why bother trying to appraise it at all?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, that frustration is exactly the friction the text wants you to feel.
Wait, really? It wants us to be frustrated?
Yes, initially. But it doesn't leave you stranded there. It builds up this immense, overwhelming majesty, and then the very moment you feel entirely insignificant, it counters with astonishing pinpoint intimacy.
Oh, right.
The text states that this exact same indescribable force cherishes all beings and creatures, and that it continually takes care of them.
It says he gives nourishment with each and every breath.
And there is the resolution to your frustration right there. The infinite is not something you experience by, flying off into some distant cosmos.
Or solving a complex philosophical equation.
Exactly. The infinite is experienced through that intimate, constant, everyday care. You come to know the incomprehensible cause of causes by realizing that you are being sustained by it right now, in this very second.
The paradox is the point.
The paradox is the core message.
So the vastness doesn't make it distant. The vastness is actually what allows it to be everywhere, including inside us.
Perfectly said.
But even understanding that intellectually, I feel like there's still a massive gap between my daily, chaotic human experience and that divine presence. I can't just cross that gap on my own.
No, you can't. And the text It acknowledges that human limitation. It introduces a necessary bridge to cross that gap.
The true guru.
Yes, the vital role of the true guru and the concept of the name, which translates to the name or the divine word.
The instructions here are incredibly direct. It says you have to meet with the perfect true guru to merge in the Shabad, the word.
Right.
And then the guru blesses the servant with the gift of the name, which acts as the destroyer of pain and suffering. It's described as the greatest treasure that dispels emotional attachment to Maya.
Which is a huge concept.
It is, and I want to talk about Maya in a second. But first, let me try out an analogy here.
Go for it.
Is the true guru essentially like a master tuner for a really complex radio? Like, we all have the hardware to hear the divine music, but we are just picking up static.
Okay, I see where you're going.
So the guru is the tuner, and the name is the precise frequency we have to tune into to hear the music.
What's fascinating here is, let's actually take that radio analogy and push it a step further, because the mechanics of how this works are brilliant.
Okay, push it further.
It's not just that you are tuning a radio to find a song playing far away. The text suggests the music is already playing inside you.
Oh, wow. Because it's giving us nourishment with every breath.
Exactly. The problem is your own internal machinery is generating an overwhelming amount of static. And that static is what the text calls Maya.
And Maya is usually translated as illusion, right?
Usually, yes.
But how does that actually apply to us today? I mean, I'm not walking around seeing mirages.
Well, think of Maya as the noise of our worldly attachments. In the modern world, Maya isn't some mystical fog.
What is it then?
Maya is doom scrolling on your phone for 3 hours.
Oh, man. Yeah.
Maya is the anxiety of comparing your career to someone else's highlight reel on social media. It is consumerism. It's the obsession with optimizing every waking second.
The constant hum of, like, I need more to be happy.
That is the static. That's Maya.
That is incredibly relatable. So how does the name actually cut through all that static?
By acting as a cognitive and spiritual interrupt. The name isn't just a magic word you say once and suddenly you're fine.
Right.
Meditating on or chanting the name requires active focus. When you bring your attention to the divine frequency, you are actively starving the static of Maya, of your attention.
You're rewiring your spiritual focus.
You really are. And when you do that, the text says, the guru's warehouse is overflowing with the 9 treasures, and those become available to you.
Right, and we should definitely clarify that these 9 treasures aren't literal pirate chests filled with gold coins.
Not at all. In this tradition, the 9 treasures are a metaphor for ultimate spiritual and psychological fulfillment.
Like peace, compassion, contentment.
Wisdom, exactly. They represent a complete inner richness. But there's a crucial caveat here that we can't skip.
What's that?
The text makes a point of saying that meeting the true guru happens, quote, only by perfect destiny.
Only by perfect destiny. That implies you can't just buy your way across this bridge.
Yep.
Or, like, hack it with a productivity app.
Exactly. It highlights the profound element of grace in this journey. You do the work of tuning the dial, but the signal itself, the bridge of the guru, is revealed to you through grace.
Okay, so let's say that grace occurs. You meet the true guru, you tune into the Naam, and you cut through the static of modern Maya.
Yes.
According to this Shabad, the internal transformation that follows is just radical. The imagery used is incredibly vibrant. It says, the darkness of ignorance shall be dispelled, and the lotus of your heart shall blossom forth.
The lotus is one of the most powerful and heavily utilized metaphors in Eastern spiritual texts, and for a very specific reason.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because I was thinking about the actual biology of the lotus.
Okay.
A lotus seed literally requires dark, muddy, stagnant water to crack open and grow. But when it finally reaches the surface, the blossom itself is completely pristine.
Completely untouched.
Yeah, it's untouched by the muck it grew out of. So is the text saying that the chaotic, muddy world we live in isn't something we are actually supposed to escape?
You've hit on the exact mechanism of the metaphor. The lotus doesn't fight the mud.
It doesn't.
No, it uses it as a foundation to rise toward the light. The mud is our daily life. It's our struggles, the difficult people we interact with, the anxieties.
The doom scrolling.
Yes, all of it. When the heart lotus blossoms through the power of the name, you aren't teleported to a mountaintop. The world is still there. The mud is still there.
But you're different.
Exactly. Your relationship to it is entirely transformed. You remain pristine within the chaos.
It's like your entire perception of reality is wiped clean. because the text actually goes on to say that when this happens, the earth and sky have blossomed forth.
Beautiful, right.
So beautiful. The world didn't physically change, but your eyes did.
And the text uses a very specific phrase to describe the psychological result of this blossoming. It says that by listening and absorbing this truth, one obtains the unchanging, unmoving state.
Unchanging and unmoving, I mean, that could sound a bit stagnant if you misinterpret it.
It could, but it is the exact opposite of stagnant. Think of it as profound groundedness.
Okay, groundedness.
Right. While everything else in the world, the mud, the economy, social media, other people's opinions, while all of that is swirling and shifting and causing anxiety, the person who has tuned into the name has found a core within themselves that does not shake.
Wow.
That stability is an incredibly active, powerful piece.
It sounds incredibly beautiful. I think anyone listening to this right now, especially navigating today's chaotic world, would desperately want that unchanging, unmoving state of peace.
Absolutely.
But how does one actually practically cultivate the soil for this lotus to grow? Because this text doesn't just offer beautiful poetry, it offers a method.
Yes, a very clear method.
And I'm going to be honest, the method it outlines is deeply challenging.
Oh, it demands a fundamental shift in how we operate as human beings.
It really does. The text gives a direct command. It says, give up your sense of mine and yours and become the dust of the feet of all.
Yeah.
And I have a real problem with this, or at least I know a modern listener is going to have a problem with this.
Let's hear it. Why is it a problem?
Look at the world we live in. We are actively trained from a very young age to build our personal brands.
True.
We are told to assert our boundaries, to stand out from the crowd, to aggressively advocate for ourselves so we don't get stepped on. Telling a modern person to become the dust of the feet of all sounds like a recipe for becoming a complete doormat. How can anyone reconcile this extreme demand for humility with just surviving in a competitive world?
This raises an important question because it is incredibly counterintuitive. And, frankly, it is supposed to be difficult. But the friction you are feeling comes from confusing self-degradation with ego reduction.
Okay.
And the difference between those two concepts is everything.
Map out that difference for me, because right now, dust sounds like degradation.
I get that. But think about it. Self-degradation is a psychological wound where you believe you have no inherent value.
Which is toxic.
Very. But we already know that contradicts the text.
Wait, how so?
The text literally just established earlier that you are fashioned by the cause of causes.
Yeah.
And that you are cherished and nourished with every single breath.
Right, so you inherently have infinite divine value.
Yes. You have immense value.
Yeah.
Ego reduction, on the other hand, is the conscious decision to let go of the false boundary of arrogance.
The sense of mine and yours that the text says we need to give up.
Precisely. When you cling to mine and yours, every single interaction in your life becomes a transaction or a competition.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
You are constantly defending your territory, your brand, your pride. That is exhausting.
It's totally exhausting.
But when the text tells you to become the dust of the feet, it is actually offering you a massive psychological relief.
Relief from the competition.
Dust is universal. It settles everywhere evenly. It doesn't try to elevate itself above the soil next to it. By dropping the need to constantly prove you are better, smarter, or more successful than everyone else, you remove the barriers between yourself and humanity.
Wow. So it's not about lacking boundaries to protect your time or energy. It's about lacking the arrogance that demands constant praise.
Exactly.
It's actually a relief from the pressure of the modern world. But doing that entirely alone seems, well, impossible.
Which is exactly why the text introduces the absolute necessity of the Satsanghat, or the Society of the Saints.
The community.
Yes. It explicitly states, joining the Society of the Saints, cleanse your mind.
Because you can't practice being universal dust in a vacuum.
You cannot practice seeing the divine in each and every heart if you isolate yourself in a cabin somewhere. You need the community.
Right.
You need other people to mirror that divine presence back to you. And frankly, you need them to practice that difficult humility with.
The rubbing of elbows, so to speak.
Exactly. The Satsanghat is the practice ground. It creates a supportive ecosystem where everyone is trying to tune into the Naam together. And that naturally cleanses the mind of that competitive static we were talking about.
That reframes the entire concept of community. It's not just a social club. It's the required operating system for this spiritual peace.
It really is.
So if community and connection are the operating system, it makes complete sense why the text takes such a dark turn when describing what happens if we reject this path.
Oh, yes. The text is entirely uncompromising about the consequences of disconnection.
It really is. I mean, it draws a terrifyingly stark line. It states darkly that on the day one forgets the Supreme Lord, one ought to die crying out in pain.
It's heavy.
It repeats this idea, saying that those without faith or love for the Lord will see their soul burn, and they will always die crying out in pain.
Yeah.
It is intense, almost shocking imagery after all the beautiful talk of lotuses and peace.
It is shocking, but we have to ask why it uses such extreme language.
Well, is this talk of burning and dying in pain meant to be read as a literal punishment, like a lightning bolt from above striking you down for not being humble?
No, I don't think so.
Or is it more of a spiritual diagnosis? Like, okay, imagine a severed branch of a tree.
Okay, good analogy.
The branch withers, dries up, and dies, not because the tree is actively punishing it, but simply because the branch has been cut off from the trunk that provides its life source.
The severed branch is the exact reality the text is pointing toward. It is absolutely a spiritual diagnosis. The text is describing the internal agony, the immense burning friction of living a life entirely disconnected from its source.
Turning the volume of the static up so loud that it literally burns you out.
Yes, when you forget you are connected to the infinite, your ego convinces you that you are alone, that you're in charge, and that you are responsible for controlling a universe you absolutely cannot control.
Which is terrifying.
The world becomes what the text calls the world ocean of fear and pain. You burn with jealousy, you suffer the agony of unfulfilled desires, and you die 1,000 little deaths of anxiety every single day. That is the natural consequence of the severed branch.
But the counterbalance to that terrifying ocean is grace.
And the mechanism of that grace in this text is incredibly moving because of its simplicity. Notice the phrasing used for the rescue.
What does it say?
It says, grasping hold of the hem of his robe. We are carried across the world ocean of fear and pain.
Grasping the hem of his robe. It's so vulnerable, like a small child grabbing their parent's coat in a crowded room.
It requires complete surrender. It doesn't say you have to build an unsinkable boat to cross the ocean of fear on your own.
Right.
It doesn't say you have to become a flawless, perfect being. It says that the Lord nurtures even the most worthless and gives home to the homeless.
Wow.
Even if you feel you have entirely messed up your life, the simple, humble act of grasping the hem of his robe through the true guru prompts what the text calls a glance of grace.
A glance of grace. Just a look.
Just a look from the divine. And that grace is what does the heavy lifting, carrying you across the water and bringing the soul to a place where mind and body are soothed and calmed.
It is a stunning journey. So what does this all mean? If we look back at the map we've been tracing today, we started by staring out at the vast, indescribable, infinite creator.
Right, that huge scale.
A force so immense it breaks our boundaries. But we learned we don't have to cross that massive gap alone. We are given the bridge of the true guru and the specific frequency of the name.
And when we actively choose to tune into that frequency, the internal transformation takes over.
Exactly. The mud of our daily lives, all the anxiety and the static becomes the very soil for the lotus of the heart to blossom forth, bringing us to an unchanging, grounded state of peace.
Yeah.
And we maintain that peace by dropping the exhausting weight of our egos, becoming the universal dust of all feet within our community, our Sadh Samgat.
And when we do that, when we humbly grasp the hem of that robe, we are saved from the agonizing burn of isolation. We are safely carried across the world ocean. For you, the listener, navigating a modern world that is built almost entirely on the constant distraction and noise of Maya, this centuries-old map is honestly more relevant than ever.
It really is.
Finding your Sadh Sangat, your true community that values connection over competition, and consciously choosing to tune your frequency away from the static and toward the Naam. That is the ultimate anchor. It is how you survive the ocean.
It really is the ultimate anchor, and it brings us right back to the very beginning, to that paradox of the vast ocean and the beating heart. The text leaves us with a stunning reality. The infinite ocean isn't just out there in the cosmos. It is actively keeping you alive right here. It says God gives us nourishment with each and every breath.
Every single one.
So I want to leave you with one final thought today. As you go about your day, as you take your very next breath, ask yourself, are you just inhaling oxygen by biological accident? Or are you ready to realize that you are being actively sustained right this second by the infinite?